Testing 1, 2.
Probably shouldn't start with a test every single time.
Every time is a test.
Oh. Well, here we go.
Welcome to Cardboard, the board game podcast.
You're listening to Cardboard, the original board game podcast.
I'm Steve Davis.
And I'm Devon Body. This is going to keep happening even if you stop listening.
So keep on listening.
Alright, thank you everyone who listened to episode 1, and apologies to anyone who listened to episode 0.
Yeah, that audio was pretty bad. But you know what? We actually do have a special guest with us here today. It's my sweater from episode 0. Say hi, sweater. Oh, man. Oh, sorry to hear that. Well, you take care, sweater.
Bye, sweater. Now back to business.
We just wanted to jump in here and cover a couple things. We're making some slight changes to the podcast.
No one likes listening to rules. All we talk about is rules.
And we want this to be a podcast that you can enjoy, laugh at, and maybe come out a little bit more informed about board games.
And listen to again and again.
Anyway, if you were cardboard to death like we were, have no fear.
We actually hired funny people to write our content for us.
Except they wanted money.
So we had to fire them.
But maybe we'll get lucky and end up funny on our own.
So keep listening and tell us what you think on all of our social media.
All of them.
We'll be checking.
So visit us on our website, cardboardpodcast.games.
And our Facebook group, at Cardboard Podcast.
And follow us on Instagram, at Cardboard Podcast.
And we're on Twitter.
No, because we're not 14 yet.
Oh, that's not fixed yet?
I have a feeling they're just going to avoid us for about 14 years.
Oh, well, we're available on Google Play.
And Spotify in a couple months.
Not yet on iTunes, but iPhone users, you can subscribe using RSS feed.
Go into your podcast library, click Edit, click Add by URL, and type in our RSS feed, and bingo!
Our RSS URL can be found on our website.
And remember to please tell your friends and family about us.
That's it for us.
Enjoy the episode! Welcome, everybody, to episode 2 of Cardboard,
the board game podcast.
And this week we are covering
Ticket to Ride.
Ticket to Ride. My name is Steve Davis.
And I'm Devon Body.
Yes, and we are your moderators, your podcasters, your
hosts, your guides, those people talking to you.
Your guides. I like guides. We are your guide to gaming. Gaming guides. Oh.
No, we're not changing the
Episode 3 of Game Guides, the board game podcast.
We already made t-shirts.
We
didn't make
already
t-shirts.
Printing. Oh.
Yeah.
Well, if you're gonna make up a joke, make sure I don't believe it. Because
we could start merchandise now.
Yes. So you haven't noticed, we are recording once again in a car.
Because cars are great.
Cars are great. They're
like studios on wheels.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say mobile studios is what I was just about to say. So it's really windy today, so that's why I think there's a lot more ambient sound that comes in and out.
Unless you don't hear anything, then it's not windy.
So this week we're going to be talking about Ticket to Ride, another extremely popular board game.
The board game with trains.
Yeah, it's a train-based board game where the goal is to
win, like most board games.
The goal is to win, and you do that by creating a long line of trains.
Or several short lines of trains.
Several short lines. It all depends on how many and in what quality.
Where they go.
And where they go, yeah. So let's jump into our first segment.
History.
All right, in this segment of history/statistics, we'll talk about the creator, Alan R. Moon. He first published this game in 2004 by Days of Wonder. Days of Wonder actually did the publishing. He created the game. Alan R. Moon, was born in Southampton, England in 1951, but he lives in the U.S. And he published Ticket to Ride at age 53. Yet another even better story. Not even,
Well, I
even
guess
better.
most people publish board games when they're older.
Maybe that's it.
Maybe that's the rule.
Okay, we've only researched two guys, but so far, yeah, they're both over 40. This guy's over 50. Yeah, but yeah, I just love those kind of stories. Not his first game, definitely his most popular.
I would say so.
Yes, but he did. It was the actual second time he won the Spiel des Jahres award. That's a German award for Game of the Year. I apologize to anyone listening who knows German,
and you just butchered their language.
I absolutely butchered their beautiful language. But think of that award, the German Game of the Year award. That's the Best Picture Oscar award. Like, that is the award the biggest award for the Oscars. This is the biggest award for board games.
All right, so this is something that is very popular worldwide. It's made it all the way over here to North America.
And talking about worldwide, it is printed in English, French, German, Spanish, Italian, Icelandic, Dutch, Finnish, Polish, Danish, Czech, Swedish, Hungarian, Norwegian, Korean, Japanese, Portuguese, Russian, and Greek.
Now, from what I've experienced playing this game, there's not actually many words. So
No.
it's just the words start in so many different languages.
Yeah, well, it's the rules, right?
Right.
But
you barely need language to play this game at all.
no, I was looking on Game Geek, which put the learn to play time, I think, was under 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Which is...
It's pick up a card, play a card. On your next turn.
No, that is a different game. That's called Flux, and that's a different game, which we will cover another time. Draw a card, play a card. Okay, a little bit more on the history. Moon actually worked for Parker Brothers, which is kind of cool background. He's actually had, and actually other companies as well. So he had a lot of history with working with game companies. Then he started his own company in 1990 called White Wind. It lasted till 97. Then in 2000 he went freelance, and that's when he came up with Ticket to Ride, and published it through Days of Wonder, and he also publishes under other companies as well.
All right, so Days of Wonder only publishes one board game per year,
Which is nuts.
which is crazy because most companies will actually publish, 9 or 10 around just to give themselves a chance in case one of them flops. Maybe you don't have to worry about it because your 9 other ones did well.
Well, it makes sense as a business plan to put out more products to reach more people.
Right, and as a strategy game, it's actually considered to be a hit once you sell about 10,000 units.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So, Ticket to Ride has sold well over 750,000 units.
Well, actually, they sold well over 750,000 units in their first 4 years.
Yeah, so that's just...
That was
as of August 2008, they sold 750,000 units.
Yeah.
And then by October 2014, they sold over 3 million units. So this is definitely a hit.
And I think what's crazy too is in, I'm not sure what the date, but in 2013, they had actually sold around the $2 million units mark. $2 million units. They had actually sold about 2 million units. So from 2013 to 2014, in a 1 to 2 year period, they sold a third of what was their total unit sales.
That's a lot of printed cardboard.
Yeah, and that's like generated over $150 million in sales, retail sales. So huge successful game, Ticket to Ride. And there's actually an article I was reading, and I apologize, I don't remember what it was, but completely forgot what I was about to say.
Yeah, it happens when you get old.
I'm gonna edit that out, man. There's gonna be a hard cut in the.
That really does explain, though, just how many expansions they've made for this game. When you bring in that much money, it makes sense to diversify and release the same game but with a different coat of paint on it.
And they did a lot of that. I didn't even bother to print up a list or get a list of them because there's just so many.
Many of which are double-sided.
Yeah, call them expansions or spin-offs or whatever. I've seen them called a few things, but so the original Ticket to Ride was North America. You're building trains across North America.
And Southern Canada.
And Southern Canada, yes. I said North America.
Did you?
I'm assuming I did.
Clearly I wasn't listening.
Clearly neither was I, because I can't even tell you if I said that. But yeah, so you're right. They did America and Southern Canada. But the new ones, like you're talking about, added Europe and Asia, a lot of different places.
And ancient places as well. So
they had
Asia, classic Europe.
Yeah, they even had like a mythological Asia on the other side of the Asia board.
Yeah.
Which was a cool twist. And just another little stat here is that they came out with an iPad app early on, and it sold 100,000 units in the first 6 months, which is huge. But then they brought it out for iPhone, and it sold 100,000 units in the first 30 days.
Which is ridiculous.
Absolutely ridiculous. So that was like, it sold 40 times faster than the board game did as the iPhone app. So it's absolutely...
It makes sense. It's a game that would lend itself very well to being on an app.
Yeah. A German-style board game, or they call this type of board game where there's a indirect player interaction, they call it.
And much less chance.
And like a medium style of chance. In this game, the chance is all through the card draws. Rather than rolling the dice, you're drawing cards and you don't know what you're going to get. So that's why in many of our games, at least one or two people end up having a stack of like 30 cards.
That's how you got to play sometimes.
Sometimes you just have to collect those cards. And the funny thing is, there'll be one color card you're trying to get.
And everyone else draws it.
And you're getting all these other cards. But then once you finally get that color of card, you'll go through that entire giant hand of yours in like 4 turns. You'll just like all of a sudden, oh okay, all my cards are gone now. Just always waiting on that one catalyst, and once you get it, then
it's a solid way to play.
It actually is, as long as someone doesn't block your route. So that's just a bit of the history that we have for Ticket to Ride. Do you have any other things you want to talk about?
No, I think we about covered it.
I think we did. All right, so we'll see you on the other side when we break down how to play this game. Rules. And welcome to the How to Play section of our podcast.
This is where things get messy.
Yes, because I'm immediately going to go on to a tangent for something that should have been in the last segment. But I just wanted to say, Board Game Geek said that this game was the epitome of a gateway game.
Like a gateway drug, right?
That's the term I've been using. I talked about in our last podcast about Settlers of Catan, and then I go in, start reading about Ticket to Ride, and Board Game Geek, which is a big resource for games and reviews of games, they have that term, a gateway game, for breaking into these more detailed, more in-depth, more strategically based games.
Well, I guess it would be a little bit more approachable than Catan was, actually.
I think it is more. I think that might be why it's getting more popular, because it's a lot simpler. You pointed out before to me that Game Geek actually put the learning time to like under 15 minutes. Yeah,
I could see how that could happen. I mean, even if you take the 15 minutes, you could probably learn it in 5.
Yeah, it's very, very simple to learn.
All right, so let's Tell them how to play.
Tell them how to play.
All right, so in Ticket to Ride, the goal is to be the person who collects the most points.
Yes, it's a point-based system, and the cool thing about it is it comes with these nice little wooden markers for each color, and the scoreboard is actually going around the exterior of the map. It's like a border with 1 through 100 listed around there.
And every time you gain a point in the game, you move your marker that many points, so it's easy to tell who's in the lead and who's lagging behind.
Or you could do it the way that every person I've ever played it with does it, where we will keep up with those scores for about 3 turns.
And then immediately forget to remember if you added the last set of points that you earned.
And the first time you forget if you added it, no one does it anymore.
Yeah.
Usually it's very... I think usually every time, I think we'll just get around the first corner, and then we forget, and then just makes ending the game a lot longer.
That it does.
Yeah.
But it is useful for those early turns at least. And then also on the board, inside of the border describing the points, you have the map that you're currently on.
So for the original game, that would be...
North America?
Yeah, North America, which is basically all of the U.S. and a bit of southern Canada.
Yes.
They did not include Mexico.
Not very much. I can't remember if it's even pictured on the board, or if it's just ocean.
I think it's like this gray mass.
Okay.
Light gray mass that's south of Texas. Yeah.
I guess trains don't go there.
That's actually a good point. I don't think there are actually train routes going across into Mexico. I couldn't possibly even say that. I have no idea.
All right, someone let us know.
Let us know in the comments.
How many trains go from the U.S. to Mexico daily?
Yeah, is there even a train line that goes into Mexico? I would assume so. Well, I mean, Trump is going to close that off with his wall.
Now that we've gone political...
Yeah, all right. Welcome to Cardboard, the political podcast.
So to play this game is very simple.
Let's start with setup.
Oh, sure. So you take the game out of the box.
That's basically
how most board games start.
Though I find taking it out piece by piece rather than trying to take the entire game out of the box, it's a little bit difficult. So take it out piece by piece.
Right. Well, if you do dump out the whole box in this one, you're going to spend the next 20 minutes sorting out colors.
Unless you're like me, where I make sure everything is in a little Ziploc bag.
Oh, but dumping it out is much more effective.
It is. And if the game does not come with Ziploc bags, I just buy Ziploc bags and I use them. Or when we're at the cottage, I just take the Ziploc bags that are not mine. And that's what I did with...
and make them yours.
Munchkin Quest. They became mine through stealing.
Quick apology to the Culps.
Yeah, I apologize. I borrowed... Man, actually, there were so many pieces in that game. I think we borrowed like 8 or 10 Ziploc bags.
Didn't even put food in them.
No. There's cardboard in them. Still in them to this day. Yeah, so sorry. So yeah, the setup is almost nothing.
Yep.
You open the board up. Give each player the color that they want. There's 5 colors.
Put that on the start, which is 0 in this case.
Yeah, put all your little
No,
wooden...
it's 1, actually.
No,
this
it's
keeps
0.
coming up. No, we always start on the 1.
There is no 0.
Yeah, there's no 0.
That's right. We start on the 1. Even though it doesn't make any sense. It's like, you start on the 1, so when you get 2 points, you have 3 points.
Yep.
And I don't like it. So that's one of our house rules. Let's start on 0.
Start on 0.
That's we kind of do that. Because it doesn't make sense to start on 1. So you get a point for playing.
It's a participation point.
Yeah, participation point. If you end the game with
Still
1
like
point, you didn't play.
All right, so now into a typical game. All
Okay.
right, so you decide who goes first. Usually we use rock, paper, scissors.
But the official rules say the person who is, I think, the most traveled. So, and then they leave that kind of open to interpretation, I think.
Which is good. You don't have to prove it.
So it's like, well, I commute 60 kilometers one way every day. I'm the most traveled.
Well, I've been to Europe. I'm the most traveled.
I've been to Europe.
Well, I've been there twice.
Well, then, yes, you're probably the most traveled. Have you been to Europe twice?
No, I've only been there once.
Yeah, exactly. Where'd you go? England?
It was a quick whirlwind tour.
That's fun. Whirlwind tours are the best.
Yep. I went to the German airport.
Oh,
that was nice.
Yeah.
A little bit of a layover.
I went to the German airport.
I can't remember which one. That was back in high school.
Germany has such a nice
and then
airport.
It was really nice, actually. I did enjoy it. Then it was over to Paris, France. And then an afternoon in Monaco. And then a few days in Spain, in Madrid.
That's really nice. I spent...
I'd do it again.
8 days in Italy. It was a bit of a whirlwind Italy tour as well.
Well, like, Italy can be like a whole trip.
Well, no, that's what it is. But it was like so we were in Rome for like 2 days, and after that, it was just like we get on a train, go somewhere for a day, and then get on a train and go somewhere. It was really nice.
Europe is the land of trains.
I love traveling. And not just like going somewhere. I mean, I love the actual act of traveling. So packing everything up, huffing everything around, getting on a train and sitting down and going on a train. That was the best part of the
watching
trip.
The countryside go by.
Oh my goodness, watching the mountains go by. It was absolutely incredible. Except that one time when the lady sitting across from me did not want the shades open at all. So I didn't get to see anything on that part of the trip. But no, it was awesome. It was such an awesome trip. I think my favorite part was seeing Pompeii. That was so cool. And we only had a couple hours. That was the tough part. But seeing Pompeii and the stuff that they've uncovered was just, it was incredible.
Now, back to the setup. So at the start of the game, you get 4 train cards and 3 tickets.
We'll cover what train cards are in a bit. But what's a ticket?
A ticket is... Well, it's the destination that you want your trains to travel.
Well, it's like the whole route from start to finish, right?
Yeah, so it's one city to another city.
Yeah, so it gives you 2 cities on the card. So, for instance, Los Angeles to New York.
Which is one of the longer routes.
Which is one of the longer routes, obviously. That's northeast corner to southwest corner of the United States. So, obviously, it'll be worth more points.
Yes. And
it takes longer to make.
Yes, it does, and you get the freedom to make it however you'd like. Even though it tells you have to connect these 2 cities, you can go north, you can go south, you can go straight across.
Yeah, you can go straight diagonal, you can cut across the north and go straight down.
As long as you connect those 2 cities, you've completed that route.
Exactly, in any way, as long as it's your train routes.
And as soon as you complete the route, you earn those points.
No.
Well,
as soon as you complete that route, you don't have to worry about it anymore, but the rules do say not to reveal it.
Yes, you reveal at the end of the game.
At the end of the game, so...
But you stop, you essentially earn it.
But
just,
yes,
you don't tell the other players.
Yeah, but I think that keeps that tension up because no one knows how many points each other has. So it's actually a very high-stress game, guys. It really is.
It can be.
Yeah, it can be.
You can be sweating bullets. Or cool as a cucumber.
Yes. Well, the first game... Well, you know what? We'll get to our first game in another segment. Excuse me for getting ahead of myself.
All right.
Yeah.
And then what happens after that?
So you have to keep at least 2 of those, the tickets, the destination tickets. Those are what you're actually doing in the game, right? So you need to... You need to keep at least 2 of those at the start to give yourself some sort of, well, those are your goals, those are your objectives.
And I believe one of them comes from a special pile?
Isn't that the case? Some games have that and some games don't, and I don't ever remember which. But there are, I think, 5 or 6 extra long routes. And then there's a giant pile of just regular routes. So, like, New York to LA would be a really long route that'd be worth at least 20 points. And so, in some setups of some of the Ticket to Ride games, everyone gets dealt 1 of those, and then 2 of the regular cards. Routes. And that way you have, you're getting at least 1 very valuable card, and then 2 other ones that are just random.
Which helps balancing it out.
And it helps with balancing, just to make sure one person doesn't get like 3 of the super long ones that happen to be going in the same direction. So
Which could pay off.
Which could be amazing. And we'll talk about...
Or it can put you in the negatives.
Exactly. But we'll talk more about that once we get into strategies. So we have our 4 cards, we have our destination tickets.
And a pile of trains.
And a big pile of trains. I think it's like 45 trains or something like that. I don't remember. It is 45 colored train pieces. What happens next?
Alright, so on each player's turn, they're allowed to take 1 action. So what they can do is they can draw 2 train cards from the face down pile, or they can pick 2 train cards from the face up pile.
Yes. So one thing, we always forget something in some segment. So in the setup, after you're done dealing out the different cards to everybody, the train cards, which again we're about to get to, go in a big face down pile, but then 5 cards are placed face up. And those will be replenished as people take from them. And then those ticket cards that you dealt out to everyone to choose then go in another pile to be drawn from later on.
Yep, and then you can also draw 1 face-up card and 1 face-down card, or 1 face-down card and then 1 face-up card.
Yeah, so you can do any combination of 2 cards.
Except when there's a locomotive involved.
So there is a locomotive card, and
if a locomotive card is face-up, you can only take the 1 locomotive card.
And a locomotive card in the regular version is a wild card. It can count as any color. So by drawing it face up, obviously it's worth a lot more. You only get to draw 1. But if you draw a face down card and it happens to be a locomotive, no one knows that but you, and you are allowed to draw a second card as per the normal rule.
Which proves quite valuable in most games.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because when you can add on an extra color to whatever one you want, sometimes that's the difference between winning and losing.
Yeah, and I've done full train routes made up entirely of locomotives. Doesn't always happen, but
sometimes you get lucky.
And that's the jackpot when you draw 2 face down cards and they're both locomotives. Happens rarely, but it's such a cool thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple more options for that single action on your turn.
Yes, you have 1 action you can do on your turn. So right now, the first option is drawing 2 cards. What's the next one?
All right. You can also draw additional routes.
So those destination ticket cards.
Yeah, so you can pick 3 destinations, and once you pick them up, you do have to keep 1 of them.
So I can keep a minimum of 1 destination ticket card after looking at 3. Okay, so now I have 2 options. You said there's a third?
Yep, there's 1 more, which is playing the cards you've collected.
Ah, yes. So on the map, there are obviously a series of cities. I say obviously, it's not obvious to everyone.
Seeing as this is an audio podcast.
This is an audio podcast.
Like most podcasts.
That we like to target towards people who are new to some of these types of strategy games. So it may not be obvious. So it covers North America, which includes all of America and a little sliver of Canada. Sorry, Saskatoon, you didn't make the cut. And then it has a lot of the major cities in those 2 countries on the map. And then it has various train lines running from each city to another city. And these can range from 1 section all the way up to, I think, in this game, 6 sections.
Yes. And those all come in various different colors, which match the colors on the train cards.
Yeah. Which are 8 colors?
Yep, so they come in black, white, red, green, blue, yellow, orange, a purple or pink card. It depends on who you ask.
Wikipedia called it purple.
I see it as pink.
It looks pink. Like, come on.
And then the gold locomotive card,
which
doesn't show up on the board because you can use it in addition to any other 1 color.
Yeah, so it is a wild card, so it acts as any of the colors, sorry. But is there any gold on that card, at least in our version? I've never seen gold on it.
The locomotive itself is kind of gold.
I don't believe that for a second.
You'd have to look at the picture.
Yeah, I would. I don't have the game in front of me. I thought about bringing it with me today. Then I said, no way am I opening up that game with all the little cards.
Just need the board.
Yeah, true. But I also forgot. I didn't actually make the decision not to bring it. I forgot it.
Makes sense.
Oh, there's also routes that are gray, and those can be made with any color train. You don't have to get a specific
Any
one.
single color.
Any single color, right? So if you had 6 red trains on there, you have to play 6 red train cards. But if you had 6 gray, you could also make that with the 6 red train cards. You can't make it with like 3 blue and 3 red. You'd have to make it with 6 red, or any combination of red and wild cards.
Yes. And that pretty much covers it for what you can do on your turn.
Yes, now that's the 3 things you can do on your turn. 1 of 3 things. You can only choose 1 each turn, but that's what you can do.
Yep. And one more thing, you can't take up 2 routes going from the same cities.
So some cities actually have twin routes, so they actually have 2 lines next to each other. I think that's to represent busier routes. So a lot of the northeastern section between, New York to Boston to Montreal to Toronto.
Yeah, almost.
Actually, Toronto's not even on the map. biggest city in Canada didn't make the cut.
Wasn't the biggest back then, I guess.
Yeah, I guess not. Right, that's fine. Wow, it's like 20 degrees outside and we're still fogging up the windows in the back.
Makes sense.
Funny.
Sunlight.
Yeah, so a lot of those will actually have 2 lines that can be placed. So, Devon could set one of his pieces down, get a route there, but if I needed it, there's still another one there that I could place, and we both are now doing the Montreal to New York route.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's...
just so that you don't get completely boxed in.
Because, especially in that northeastern, it's a lot more of a denser area, which is based around real geography. So if they didn't have those double sections, if any 2 people had a route in that north part, it could very easily get cut off, and then...
Yeah, and then you're stuck with all your destination cards.
Exactly. Yeah, then you're stuck losing a lot of points, and we'll cover losing points in a little bit.
All right, so after you're done taking your 1 action, the next player goes, and they also get 1 action.
Yeah, it just does the same thing all the way around the table.
And you might ask, when does the game end?
The game ends when one person... Sorry, I'm making a lot of noise. The game ends when one person gets down to 2, 1, or 0 train tokens left.
And then everyone else gets 1 more action.
Yeah, so if I place a train down on the board, and now I have 2 trains left, that means everyone else gets 1 more turn after this one, including me, so I still get 1 more turn as well. And then the game ends on my next turn. And that's how the game ends, and then points are tallied after that.
Yep, so you would earn points based on the trains that you put down. Usually the more trains you can put down at a time, the bigger the amount of rewards you get from the points.
It's kind of exponential, too. So 1 train gets you 1 point. 2 trains gets you 2 points. 3 trains gets you 4 points. 4 trains gets you 7 points. 5 trains gets you 10 points. And 6 trains get you 15 points.
Yep.
So obviously the 6 trains are the... Are there 6 train ones?
Yes, there are.
Yeah, okay. So obviously the 6 train routes are the ones that are most valuable because you get more points for what you're placing.
But they also might not be necessary for your selected route cards.
And obviously they take a lot longer to gather 6 cards of one color when you're drawing from a deck that has 8 colors in it.
Yeah.
Right? So that can be very difficult.
So after you've tallied up all the points you've earned from placing your trains, that's when you would reveal your destination cards.
Yes, at the end of the game, once that last turn goes, you can now reveal the tickets you had in your hand, showing you how many points you actually get at the end of the game.
So whenever you've actually completed one of those, you would earn that many points.
But what happens if I didn't complete it?
Well, that's where your greed might have been a little bit too much that you could handle.
Oh boy.
And every single point that you didn't earn gets subtracted from your score.
Yeah, that's the tough one, which is why you may not want 3 of the 20-point tracks, because if you
especially if they're going in different directions.
Yeah, exactly. So if you aren't able to complete one, you lose. You lose those points. You don't just lose. You lose those points. So that is why selecting your route or of those 3 cards you get at the start that you have to select from, that's a very important step. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of the strategies we use when selecting routes in our next segment.
All right, and then after everyone has added and subtracted the points that they've earned or lost, whoever has the greatest total of points wins the game.
That's it. And that's why it helps a lot if you are able to keep track while you're playing the points you earn for placing a train, because when you place the train you get, I placed a 5 train, I get 10 points. That's why it makes it easier if you
keep an ongoing tally.
Yeah, have that. Everyone has a token. There is a board there for adding them up. So if you actually just do that throughout the game, it makes it a lot easier. But it's I don't think we've ever done a full game where we actually did that.
No. Usually we wait until the last turn and then take about 20 minutes adding and subtracting everything.
Yeah, exactly, because you can still see, we don't take anything, as soon as the game's done, we don't touch the board, and you can see all the different routes that you place. So based on that equation I mentioned earlier, you can add up all your points by going through the board. And usually, it takes us 2 or 3 times counting it to make sure it's correct. And then you add up or subtract any of the tickets you completed or
and
did not complete.
And if you do start on the 1, make sure you add that 1 point as well.
Yeah, exactly, because that's the one that may always get you. Because we have had some games that were within a couple points before. Usually it's like, I have 102 points. I have 108 points. I have 156 points. Like,
all right,
usually,
I think we know who won.
Yeah, usually the gap is pretty big by the end of the game. But yeah, it's such a solid game.
Very approachable, fun colors.
It sounds much more complicated when we talk it out, because talking out the rules is not the best thing. It's why sometimes when we're learning new games, it takes us a long while to learn it, because one person starts reading it.
The other person's just spending their time stacking their trains. Yeah,
because it's so hard to listen to someone read it, and then we pass the instructions around. I cannot get a game down based on someone reading it to me. I can't. That's why usually...
I can.
Yeah, and I know you can. You can listen to me read the rules and understand the game. I find that so hard. Unless I've got already a grasp of some of the core rules, I can't, for a fresh game, I can't just listen to you read it to me. That's why I usually do the reading, because you can get it.
Yep, no
or maybe
problem
it's just a comment on how different our reading skills are.
Yep. Mine are much better.
No, my reading skills are much better because you can understand. I can't understand it from what you read to me. Okay, that's it for this segment. Yeah, so join us in a minute or two for our next segment.
Or 20 seconds. Depends on how long our intro and outro is.
That's honestly what it's based on.
Hopefully we get back a rock ballad.
So we'll join us again in 6 minutes when we get into strategies.
Strategies.
Alright, so on to strategy.
Now we're talking about strategies. So
winning the game is getting the most points. How do you get the most points?
Yeah, exactly. This is what's called a strategy game, right? So obviously there's going to be a lot of strategy involved. The first strategy that I employ when playing this game is right from the start when you are choosing your routes. I think I'm sure you use the same, is that if I'm looking at this, Montreal to LA, but then there's another one that says Montreal to, give me another, Colorado. I don't even know. I don't think that's one of the cities. No, that's a state.
Yeah.
What if there's like Montreal to...
Guess we should have a board in
Denver,
front of us.
right? which is not a city in the game, I don't think, but who knows.
Something in that general area.
It's a city. So if I pick up 2 cards, or if 2 of the 3 cards I have is, one is Montreal to LA, and one's New York to Denver.
And then the other one is Montreal to Florida or Miami.
If you have 2 that are going in the general direction, obviously that's easy. But then you can also start with that Montreal route, come south, and even if you don't go all the way south to continue over to LA, you can branch one off down to Miami while continuing on to LA. And so now half of that Montreal to Miami route is also being utilized for your Montreal to LA route. So that's the kind of thing I'm looking for when I'm selecting either my startup tracks or if I choose to get some more later on in the game.
Right. Which works because I guess it also puts you in the running for longest train. Which we also didn't go over, but
there is a bonus for having the longest continuous train, not just the most pieces placed. So any branches off of the longest line would not count.
And apparently circles don't count as infinite.
Was it you who tried that, or our buddy?
I tried
going
that
in
before.
a circle, and it's like, no, that's not infinite. Just pick a start point, and that's where it ends.
It's infinite. It's
Just
a Mobius
keep
train.
Going. It's a snake eating its own tail. It's forever. But yeah, that's also come into play when I've selected new routes sometimes, because you might not need all your pieces to complete the routes you get at the start. So that's why you have the option to pick up some more tickets. Sometimes you'll get there, and if it's been a particularly long route that you had from the start, you might actually pick up a card that's already completed or needs only 1 track. That's a given. Just take that card.
Every time.
Yeah, it's free point. It's essentially free points sometimes. If you have to put down 1 or 2 tracks or none in rare but somewhat common
I've had
cases.
that happen several times.
Yeah. It's especially in the Ticket to Ride Europe, which we're not covering.
Towards the end of the game, it's always a risk to pick up more cards, but more often than not, you can get one of those 3 cards to work out in your favor.
You're drawing 3 cards. The first thing I always look at is, okay, how many train pieces do I have? Because once your train pieces are out, as you know now, the game ends. So how many train pieces do I have? Do I have enough to complete this route? And how many train pieces do my opponents have? Are they going to complete routes before me? And it's also
look at they play a 6 route and then end the game 2 turns before I would be ready.
Yeah, exactly. Look at the number of cards they have, because if they have a giant mass of cards,
they're about to lay some track.
They've got probably a few that they're ready to play or that they're going to be playing soon. So you may not want to
waste
take
any time.
Too many cards. Because remember, you can also get points for just putting down tracks. So even if you complete your routes, maybe even some other routes, but you still have more pieces, you could just start putting down some of the big routes rather than work towards it. I mean, it makes more sense to work towards a goal, but if it's in that point where you
already met your goal,
you've already met your goals, but it seems like there may not be enough time if you don't get one of those super nice, I already have it completed routes, you do have the option just to start laying down tracks. Or, as I did in our very first game, you could block other players. It's a bit of a dirty thing, but it's a strategy.
And it's quite simple to do. Usually you do need another player to work with you to completely block the person out. Otherwise, it'll usually be resolved with just a workaround where they just have to put 5 or 6 more trains than they would have had to before.
Yeah, and so it's not... Yeah, there's very rare cases that you're going to completely block someone. Like, when I blocked you, I didn't actually completely block you, but I stopped you from putting down 1 track and forced you to have to build, it was at least 5 to 8 different tracks, which actually stopped you from completing the track. So you can block somebody on those easy routes and force them to have to go around, and you can even block them on those. Again, you may lose friends on this, but when you employ this strategy, because it's a genuine strategy.
Which also brings us to make sure the other players don't know specifically where you need to go.
Yeah, that is I'd say it's less of a strategy and more of just a rule of the game. But yeah, don't reveal where you're trying to get to, which is not just don't say it and don't show it. It can also be try to mask
where you're putting your trains down.
Exactly. But you also want to grab those crucial ones early, right? Because there are...
Especially in games with more players.
Yes. So in other games like Ticket to Ride Europe, it's a lot of short tracks. Like, there are a lot of threes. But in the regular version, US, which we're talking now, North America, a lot of the mid to western tracks are all 4 or 5.
Yeah, they're all much longer.
Right? And so if you miss one of those and you have to go around building multiple 4 or 5 tracks,
it adds up, and you may run the risk of running out of trains before you've reached where you wanted to go.
Or running out of time, because it takes time to gain all the cards. And if you have other people who are a little bit more set up than you are, they could force the end game before you're finished your track. And then that's, if you're working towards a goal, there's a lot of points that you're going to lose.
That is true. And another great strategy is draw 2 cards when you don't actually need anything on the table specifically. So don't forget that you can draw 2 cards. That's always important. You don't have to take the 5 cards that are on. But sometimes it pays off greatly to just say, you know what? I don't need these ones. I'm going to just try to get 2 locomotives. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, so you're talking about when there's 5 face-up cards and you don't actually need any of those 5 face-up cards. You don't have to force a strategy upon yourself of taking, okay, well, I guess I'll take this black one, even though my route doesn't have any black trains on it, or I don't have any black trains in my hand. Start by drawing one.
See what it is.
Face down, and see what it is. If you draw a card and it's a black card, it's like, well, now it's worthwhile to take that second black card because now I have 2. Right? That's actually a really good idea. Draw from the face down pile
or
first.
Or just draw another one from the face down.
And sometimes it's worthwhile to take draw from the face down pile, because I don't know if we talked about it before. Yeah, we did talk about it before, where if you pick up a locomotive that's face up, you only get that one. But if you pick a face up locomotive card, I should say, but if you picked up a locomotive card as a face down card, again, you're the only one who knows that. So you are allowed to pick up another face down card. You can't pick up, draw one face down, then be like, okay, now draw this face up locomotive. No. If you already drew one card that wasn't a locomotive, you don't get to make a second as a locomotive.
Yeah, which is true.
Right. So, but again, it has, in rare cases, happened where you draw 2 cards and you get 2 locomotives.
Oh, and there's one more rule that we forgot.
Of course we did.
Which, usually happens as it comes up. That's when we realize we've forgotten a rule.
Welcome to our new segment, We Forgot to Say Something.
Which is something that will happen in probably every episode.
We should probably just save a segment for the end where we talk about everything we forget.
Well,
go on.
In this case, what we forgot is when the 5 displayed cards...
Ah, yes.
are mostly locomotives. I believe it's 3 in this case. Once 3 locomotives are revealed, you get rid of all 5 cards. They go into the discard pile, and you draw 5 new cards.
That's right. So it just keeps the face-up pile fresh and accessible, because it's common, but not overwhelmingly common, that people take the face-up locomotive card, because you only get 1.
But there's a lot of times where it has happened where 2 cards have been sitting there, and as you're drawing cards, you say, oh, I'm going to take this blue one because I need to finish the blue route, and then I'm going to go take the green one over there. But when you draw the blue one, you have to replace the card immediately.
Yes, you
and
don't...
once you draw the new card, if it happens to be a locomotive, there goes that green card you wanted.
Exactly. So I think we've played a little bit, in our history, I think we've played a little bit loose with that, where we've been just grabbing 2 at the same time, which, when you think about it, is officially against the rules, because you need to draw 1 at a time, and then replace that one with the other card from the face down pile, so that if it is a locomotive, sorry, you lost that green one. You might get another one come up, but you might not. More often not. Yeah, so those are some good strategies just to consider when playing. Pretty basic strategies, I think.
Another great strategy is play where no one else happens to be playing. If you see a long route and everyone is on the left side of the board, play on the right side.
I mean, you don't always get the choice because you have your routes that you chose from the start, your ticket.
But it's great for throwing people off.
It's great for throwing people off, and you can also choose if they're both playing on the the right side of the map, going south, going down. You could try going up and over. It might be a lot longer, but you avoid the risk of being cut off. You avoid a lot of stress.
Yeah.
This is actually, for a lot of people, a stressful game.
Yeah.
Because, what was that term?
Causes some heart palpitations.
Yeah.
Maybe a heart attack risk.
I'm going to pull up a thing here.
And may or may not end some friendships along the way.
No, the thing I was looking for is, this is actually a quote from Alan R. Moon, the creator of the game. So the tension in the game comes from being forced to balance greed, adding more cards to your hand, and fear, losing a critical route to a competitor, which is such a really accurate description of this game, because you're always trying to get those cards so that you have the cards to build whatever route you need, but you're also worried about losing those routes as you draw the cards, right?
And then having to put in much, much more work.
Yeah, exactly. If you lose that key route, now you have to go all the way around.
If you can even make it.
If you can make it at all. Because, I mean, there's only so many routes in and out of a city, especially when you get up to Montreal, and there's only, I think, one double route and one single route, right? So if you're playing in a 4-player game and 3 people need to get to Montreal, one person is getting left out in the cold from Montreal, right? And so those are the real stresses they talk about, the tension that's in this game. And sometimes it's actually really fun to watch, because as much as I'm like feeling some of that stress, like I'm not like freaking out, but I watch some people freak out on this game, and it's hilarious. Yeah.
Can be pretty comical.
You were one of them on that first game.
Yep.
Yeah, you were freaking out, and you don't show it, but
No.
you were freaking out.
Yep.
Yeah, that was cool.
I was a couple trains away from just finishing all the things in my
Yeah,
hand.
yeah.
But the 2 that I had were like the higher amounts, was like 24 or 25. So if I somehow couldn't complete those, it would just be I lost.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was something that I really, really had to finish, and just that tension of, oh, there's 3 other players. Before I get to make my next move, 3 other things are going to happen. What are those 3 things going to be? Can I like minimize how much damage they'll do and get people to play maybe their less risky moves
Yeah.
before their riskier moves by playing a less risky move on my part?
Yeah, that's those are the crazy things. And sometimes you put down a track and you're just watching people and you're so freaked out on their turns, because there's only so many tracks that can be made, and people might be going for maybe not the same place, but another place nearby, or another place that's far away, but they had the same route in mind. So you put yours down. If you're getting close to them, they might start to freak out and then put their trains down there to block it, right? Just so that make sure they get their route. And that's where the stress is coming from, is watching where people are putting those routes. And I like to watch people's eyes as I'm playing, see where they're looking on the board, just to kind of get a small idea of, okay, are they going near where I'm going? Does this seem like they're trying to take the same area from me?
And that's why I dart my eyes around all over the place.
And I wear sunglasses. We play this like poker. I'm sunglasses, hoodie up, no expression.
It's a good way to play.
Yeah. Okay, that was our strategy section. Our recording is going really long, though a lot of it's going to be edited out. But this is another big time game. We may just have to reconsider how long these podcasts are. Okay, we're going to take...
hear feedback and go longer if we need to go longer.
Yeah, we're trying to keep these podcasts. I don't even know if I'm going to keep this segment in. Well, we're thinking of recording our podcast in the 30 to 45 minute range, but
like lunch break length.
Yeah, but they seem to be sticking around that 40 to 50 minute range based on,
which is not bad.
30 minutes is short. I think that'll be something like Flux.
Some sort of mini-sode.
Exactly. So yeah, actually that's a great point that Devon made. Please let us know what you prefer in the Facebook group, on Twitter. Let us know. Do you like a shorter podcast so you can take it in a quick moment and move on? Do you like a longer podcast so you can hear our beautiful, beautiful voices for even longer?
Talking about nothing, essentially.
Exactly. So please just let us know. And yeah, so we're going to move on to our next segment, which is
that other thing we need to talk about,
which is house rules.
Custom rules.
We are now in the house rules portion of our podcast.
Let's break the rules and change the game.
Exactly. So this game, I find, this is a great game, but it's not quite as open to some house rules as Catan was.
No, this one is fairly balanced between chance and the other players. So if you change it too much, it stops working.
Yeah, exactly. Not to say that, oh, I like Catan more, I can really customize it the way I want. Not at all. Different games are going to be, customizable or variable to different degrees. This one is a little bit more, I don't want to say rigid, but it's a little more set for the way the rules work. So we actually haven't ever played anything with some house rules, aside from little things like we mentioned before, like taking 2 cards face up without replacing one at a time. Like we've done that.
Yeah.
And I think
starting at 0 instead of starting at 1.
And starting at 0 instead of 1, simply for our own mental capacity of adding, because we always forget that one. It'll always be one person remembers that point, and like everyone else doesn't.
Yeah. And then they win by 1 point.
But what we just did now is we actually spitball some different ways we could play the game, which we again haven't played yet.
Have not been play tested, but we think they could work.
Yeah, and these will probably be something we try in the future. So the one I thought of last week was the Settlers of Catan-esque longest road rule. The way that one would play is, after you place your first 2 trains, your first 2 routes, whenever that may be, there isn't a set time when you do that, you can now only place trains that connect to those trains. Which is not normally anything you have to do. You don't have to keep them connected.
Right, so that could change a lot about the way that the game is played, because you really only start with 2 trains then. So instead of being able to say, oh, I'm going to start on all 3 of my tickets at the same time, I'm going to put a train on each of those destinations. Now suddenly you're a little bit more restricted in where you can go, so you might have to start on one of them and then try to connect them both in the middle.
Yeah. It makes the destination ticket selection process much more important to make sure that if you're taking more than 2 routes at the same time at the start, you really want them to be as close together, or at least as close to a connection as possible. So I called it the Catan longest road rule, but I also called it ultra hard mode because it's just like such a nightmare to have to keep everything connected. Because the other thing to think about is, now you can't just build a route when you get enough cards.
No, you have to build to that route first.
Yeah, you have to. Now you're collecting cards for a specific track for every track you build. You can't just collect cards and then say, well, I'm going to need this route eventually. Let me just build it now, even though I'm not even close to it yet.
Yeah, and then also it makes you want to consider connecting your trains or not. Because if you do connect the 2 trains that you start with, suddenly you only have 2 places that you can build instead of 4.
No, because you can still build out from that, right? So the 2, if you connect it as this big long snake, you don't just have to build off the end. You can still build it from cities in the center.
Oh, so you can still connect.
You can still branch.
Okay, you can still branch.
But it
whenever you
has to
feel
be
like.
connected. I was just thinking maybe Catan longest road rules is actually misleading.
So that's what I got from it.
Make it like actual railroad type rules, like CN, Canadian National Railroad, might have, you know, a couple, like its eastern route and its western route, but you know that there's a connection through the middle. It doesn't make sense for one company to start building in 2 different or 3 different spots, right? To me, that doesn't make sense. The way our trains work, at least in North America, is as a way to ship primarily freight from essentially one area to another. So that's just kind of where I got the idea.
Okay.
What were one of the ones you got?
So the one that I came up was a dice roll. So you would add a dice to this game, which it doesn't come with, but I'm sure you have one lying around. So,
Well, the original idea you had was a D20, which
yeah, which they might not have. So
a 20-sided. Okay, take out your one of your 20-sided dice.
yes, which you must have somewhere in your house. I'm
your
sure
favorite
it's-
one. Take that
Yeah.
out.
You must have 7 or 8.
7 or
Um,
I'm the exception where I have like 50.
yeah, so take out your D20, and at the start of every player's turn, they roll it. So on a roll of 1 or 2, that player chooses up to 2 of their cards. So,
No, I would say just
so-
make it 2.
Yeah, so the player chooses 2 or 1 if they only have 1
Fair.
of their cards, and they put that in a face-up lost pile. So these are cards that just leave your hand whenever you roll a 1 or 2.
Almost like a free parking.
Yeah, so a little bit like the free parking rule, yes. And then how you land on this free parking rule is if you roll a 19 or a 20. In that case, you pick up any 2 of the lost cards.
And you get to choose?
Yeah, you get to choose from the whole pile.
See, that's cool. Up to 2. If there was only 1 card in there, you'd only pick 1.
Yep.
That's cool. I like that rule.
Which won't change it too much, but it could change the card economy if it happens at a opportune moment.
Yeah, exactly. Or if it happens early on in the game, or late on when it's like, okay, I've only got 1 track to place, and then you roll 1, and it's like, well, I have to throw my cards away.
Yep.
And now I don't have enough to play my last train.
And of course, you could replace this with a D6, which is, if you happen not to have a D20, you probably have a D6 in one of your board games.
Exactly.
And then just use the 1 for the losing a card and the 6 for picking up a card.
I can't even tell you how many D6 I have.
6?
Yeah, that's
Wow.
it. I only have 6. Yeah, good guess though. Yeah, and you could do like 1d6 where 1 is toss 1 and 6 is get 1, but that's going to happen a lot. So you could make it 2d6 and make it, okay, on a roll of a 2 you lose 1 or lose 2 cards, and a roll of a 12 you gain the 2 cards. You could make it anything you want based on how often you want that to happen, right? And actually,
You could
I would
even
say,
make it a 50-50.
sorry, actually rolling a 2 is actually less common than rolling a 1 on a d20, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, it's a 1 and a 2.
Yes, but even just roll, I wasn't referring specifically to this, but I think rolling, I can't remember how it works, but I think rolling 2 1s on 2 d6s is statistically harder to do than rolling a single
Well, what?
1
That's
on a
1
d20.
in 36,
That's what it is.
and D20 is 1
1
in
and
20.
yeah. So you can make it a 2 and a 3, or a 2 and a 3, or a 11 and a 12, right? Whatever you want. It's just we don't need to get into the
Or 50-50. Roll low, lose 2 cards. Roll high, gain 2 cards.
There you go. Like, you can make it however you want. You could also say, okay, well, you roll any number you get, nothing happens unless you roll double 6s, and then you just get a second action. Wow, I
Yeah.
just came up with that. That's
yeah,
cool.
That could just ruin everything.
Or you roll double 2s, double 1s, sorry, and now you lose your action. Well, there, you just lost the game. I also had a couple other ones, which was just messing a little bit with how you draw the cards. So you could make it so there's no face down draw pile. You only get those 5 face-up cards to choose from. They'll still get replenished as normal, but the pile from which they get replenished, you never get to draw from. And I think it'd still keep the game going, still keep all the other rules. You only get to draw 1 locomotive. That would make them a little bit more valuable and harder to come by, but you also refresh it when 3 locomotives show up.
Yep.
But then the other rule I thought of was, wait, take away those 5 face-up cards, and you only can draw from the face-down pile. This might slow the game down a bit more.
Yeah, I think I like the first rule a little bit better.
I
where
like
you're drawing from the 5.
Yeah.
Because that way, some players might be forced to draw colors they don't want in an effort to get the colors that they do want. But
Yeah, exactly.
those may still be helpful to them, and they get a little bit of agency over what happens.
They get to choose at least what the colors are that they're getting, and so even if they're forced to take cards that they don't need, they can take at least, multiples of that one color, so that they can at least build themselves up for something later.
Yeah, and then with the draw 2 face down cards, there's a little bit, there's a lot more chance involved.
And
you have
every draw
much
is
less
completely random.
control over where you're going to be building trains and when.
Yeah, exactly. And then the last one I had was what we call. Oh, why don't you talk about the?
Yeah, so which
blind
is
ticket swap.
the ticket swap. So this would be an action that you would take not very often. It would be probably once per game. You could take one of your tickets and swap it with the face down card on top of the destination ticket pile.
So if you find one that, okay, this one is, I'm not going to be able to get to, all my other trains are going in the other direction, this one just doesn't make sense, let me just toss this, but you don't get to choose anything, you just take the top card.
No, you just take the top one.
Yeah.
And then you're stuck with that.
It's interesting, because if you're in a situation where you feel it can't get worse, you have a shot at getting something better.
And maybe it can get worse, and you just never thought
and
it
you
could.
didn't think it could, but it did. Because now you have 3 routes that exceed your minimum 45 train tokens, and now you can't win.
Or maybe it just won you the game and you got 10 extra points.
Exactly. That could be it too. That's really all we have for Ticket to Ride.
Feel free to come up with your own customized game rules and share those with the community.
Yeah, put them on our Facebook group, facebook.com/cardboard. I'm sure that's probably already taken. That's not our URL. Does anyone even use Facebook on a web browser if they're under 40?
I'm sure some people do.
I'm sorry for everyone under 40 that I just insulted. But yeah, please check out our Facebook group. And actually, to be fair, things like groups and whatnot are still not so manageable on devices. I don't know what
Not as easily.
Exactly. I don't know what some developers are doing. No offense to anyone from Facebook listening, but like sometimes they just...
Or real offense. Do your job better.
Yeah, you know what? You work for Facebook. Like, it's valued in billions. So, you know what? Yeah, do your job better. They're paying you exorbitant amounts of money.
They're probably not.
They're not paying. Yeah, all those billions are spread out evenly across all the employees. No. If you are part of our Facebook group, yeah, it might actually be a lot easier if you're on an actual web browser. I know for me it is. But yeah, share some of your strategies, some of your experiences.
Love to hear your stories.
Yeah, I might.
When you tasted that sweet, sweet train victory.
Yeah. Share some of your, first time experiences with us too. Tell us how it goes. Tell us if we helped. I certainly hope we did. I completely expect we didn't. And
in fact, we were probably more of a hindrance than anything.
You probably tried to do some of the stuff we said, which may only work when we're playing with each other because we play very specifically. Who knows?
One more game tip. Know your audience.
Know who you're playing with. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Know your enemy. That is a saying
your
for a reason. If you know your enemy, that's how you beat your enemy. And then become your enemy. And then someone has to come and defeat you and become you. It's a long cycle of just enemies taking over each other.
Hopefully one day you can be yourself.
No, they'll be defeated and killed.
Yeah.
We've only played this game once because the loser of every game dies. Goodbye. Just dies. End podcast. Yeah, no, because still didn't get that. Yeah, follow me on Twitter, Sweep117, Instagram, Sweep117. Follow us on the Facebook. Join the Facebook group. Be nice on the Facebook group. I will not hesitate to kick you off the Facebook group if you are not nice.
Also, follow me on things. I
yes.
don't know what things, but follow me on them.
There you go. Follow Devon on all the things. And follow me on all the things. And then we'll all be a happy family of followers. But don't expect me to follow all of you back. I'm assuming we're super popular by now. This is episode 2.
Yeah. I mean, fame comes in what, 5 minutes?
That's the rule. So all you thousands and millions of fans, I'm not going to follow all of you. Except for you, Gerald. Yep. I will officially follow anyone named Gerald.
All right, everyone. See you at Cardboard Con.
Cardboard Con. And then 2 weeks later, we're going to be at Gerald Con. This episode has been brought to you by Gerald. That's it. That's it for us. Again, we are terrible at outros because we don't know when to stop. So
I know when to stop. I just, go past that.
Choose not to. Yeah. Actually, I think that's more accurate. We both know when to stop. We just don't. We don't. Yeah. Stupid Gerald. All right, guys.
I thought you'd like Gerald.
I do, but he's stupid. I think I like you.
I'm not stupid.
Bye.